Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to take a look at the final of the first wave of the Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsion Series figures, and this is also the second of the 1/6 scale figures, as the only other one in 1/6 scale is the Protoceratops, while this one quite clearly is the Psittacosaurus, and it's definitely one of my most anticipated figures because I love Psittacosaurus. So anytime I can get a new Psittacosaurus figure, it's a great day, but the first time I've ever added an actual articulated Psittacosaurus to my collection is a really great day. This figure was actually a request repeatedly from Dinosaur Game World 761, so a shout out to him for consistently asking me to get the Psittacosaurus review up. So pretty much your standard box art as far as the Beast of the Mesozoic goes. Really beautiful boxes overall, and in fact these boxes are definitely the type of boxes you want to keep and collect and add into your collection overall because they are just fantastic. But you can see some really nice artwork here on the front, and then when we flip it around and we take a look at the back, we can again see some of a checklist here that has quite a few of the figures included in the line, as well as a sneak peek of the card right here. And then some information on the species down there, Psittacosaurus up here. I've also actually never really shown you guys, but if you slide this over, you have, again, more of the figures that are included in the line, as they're just kind of hidden behind this, because this is a little slip cover that goes over just an edge, a corner here, and a really cool addition, but they kind of hide some of the other Ceratopsians, so I did want to show you guys that before I end the Ceratopsian reviews, because I don't think I've actually pointed that out previously in any of the other reviews. But anyway, I'm really psyched to open the final of these figures, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So straight away, before we even get into the review, I do want to point out the fact that this comes with a base, but the base is actually in a separate package because this was kind of a last-minute decision on the part of David Silva. It's also the only Ceratopsian that actually comes with a base, but the base is very similar to the Raptor series as far as the overall appearance with the peg and everything, and that is due to the figure actually not being able to stand in a bipedal position. Initially, the earlier versions could stand in a bipedal position, but right before pretty much shipping of these figures, he realized that this could no longer stand in that bipedal stance. So David Silva, being absolutely awesome and always giving us, again, the highest of quality releases, hurried up and created an entire run of bases to go with the Psittacosaurus and released them separately outside of the actual packaging of the figure. And then we also have inside the packaging the, of course, tail assembly, but we also have this fantastic card, which is really beautiful artwork as always. This actually might be my favorite card. It's tough to tell. It'd be probably either this one or the Chasmosaurus, because the Chasmosaurus had that really cool image of the dinosaur walking along, kind of looking at some turtles in the water and stuff. I just thought that one was really cool, but this one actually might be my favorite or potentially second favorite. But regardless, you can see on the back a really nice image of the figure, the title of the species, as well as some information, the Creative Beast Studios logo down here, and the Beast of the Mesozoic logo up at the top. Another incredible card, and I just want to say that I love the addition of these cards with each and every release. Awesome as always. And then here is our Psittacosaurus figure, which we're unfortunately going to have to put in a quadrupedal stance currently, but we will get the base out, of course, take a look at it and stand it up on the base eventually here. But the figure straight away is just absolutely gorgeous in every way, and man, this one is really nice. It's cool to see kind of a different style of Ceratopsian, as of course every species so far previously was a quadrupedal Ceratopsian, so to have one here that kind of can go quadrupedal or bipedal is a really cool figure to take a look at, and it's just so different than all of the previous releases, so it's kind of fresh, I guess you could say. But overall, I really like the appearance of this figure. I love the paint scheme on it. I love the sculpt from what I can see here. Really psyched about taking a closer look at this one, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Psittacosaurus, you can see that the overall head sculpt is gorgeous as far as the sculpt and detail. Really beautiful scale detail all over the head sculpt of the figure, and you can see that scale detail is present beautifully up on the top of the head, but then runs down here onto the side of the face and looks great in every aspect of the figure. Really nice brown used up here on the face, and then you kind of have like a, what looks to be like an off-white or a yellow that's run through, but they kind of have given it like a wash of like almost a reddish brown in that area. And you can see that same similar style of paint to the beak of the Psittacosaurus, actually. It's a very similar style with like that off-white or a yellowish coloration, and then that kind of reddish brown type of a wash that they've given it, which does bring the detail out quite nicely, and overall I think is very appealing looking. You can also see as far as this little kind of spike here on the side of the face, there's like a little ring that sort of runs around the edge of it right there, a little white area. Up here on the top of the head, you can see a brown right here, as well as a really nice reddish coloration right there, and you can also see how this kind of wash transitions out so that it's a little brighter up here, and then there's also a darker yellow down here, which is actually a mixture of a white and a yellow in that area as well. So of course, tons and tons of paint variation with the figure, and you can see that same deal down here as you have more of like that reddish brown, and then you have almost like a yellowish mixed with the reddish wash, which almost makes it appear orange, and then you have the yellow with a really nice dry brushing over top of that. So tons and tons of paint variation included as always, but an absolutely gorgeous sculpt here on the underside of the figure. Again, you can see like the throat sticking out here and everything. Really nice detailing in the chest region of the Psittacosaurus as well. Coming back into the neck, lots of really nice skin wrinkles appearing here in the neck as far as the actual sculpt and detail. That looks great. I love the skin wrinkles right there, the skin folds. Beautiful scale detail as we lead down the neck, and you can see like this black, but then within the black there's a nice brown, so there's some beautiful color variation there. But then once we actually get back here, it transitions back from that black and brown to just the black, and you can also see a red up here, and everything's been given a really nice dry brushing to bring that detail out beautifully, and you can see that dry brushing really nicely here within the reddish coloration on the side of the Psittacosaurus. Pretty much every scale has been brought out beautifully within the sculpt of the figure, and you can also see some kind of osteoderms poking up here and there that are painted with a brown and a black in certain spots as well. Moving down into the front limbs, you can see some pretty decent musculature sculpted out, some more of those osteoderms, as well as a really nice kind of orangish coloration that's sort of been dry brushed with like a dark red or a pretty dark brown to bring the scale detail out, again in a very realistic way. That's something that is extremely common, it seems, at this point with the Beast of the Mesozoic figures. Really nicely sculpted, hands down here, and I actually like that there's even more articulation with this one than there is with most of the Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsians, of course, because you now have the ability to use hands, so we actually have articulation in the fingers here as well as the wrist, so that's really, really neat. Beautifully painted nails, really nice gloss coat added to them as well. Coming back up into the body, you can see a little bit more of like some skin folding and everything going on, some more of that incredible scale detail. I also like the scale detail here on the underside, an entirely different style of scaling here on the underside of the figure, but really beautiful texturing to the skin. Of course, the scales up here really nicely brought out again with that dark dry brushing, and then we lead back here where it all of a sudden gets very dark as far as that like reddish coloration. You have a lighter here, and then it gets to like a very dark like mixture of a brown and sort of a dark red right there. You can also see a nice mixture of the black and brown within this area as well. Again, that scale detail looks phenomenal. Beautiful musculature displayed in the leg. You can see some really nice muscle tone in both the thigh and calf region. Again, the scale detail is as top-notch as you're probably ever going to find, and yet again beautifully dry brushed out, so we can take note of it really nicely. You can see down here as we move down into the leg, you can see a little bit of paint variation here, but then once we get down into the feet, you can see that the feet have really nice scoots that run down the toes. Beautiful brown dry brushing that highlights those scoots as well. And you can see again the nails are picture perfect as far as both the paint and the gloss coat used on the feet right there. Coming back up into the tail, you could see a little bit of a creamy kind of an off-white coloration there, but a whiter coloration here on the underside, as well as that kind of reddish brown streak. And then we lead up here into the tail where we have a nice mixture of that brown and black. It looks like right here on the tail it's been kind of painted as like a nice dark brown, almost like a very dark reddish brown, and then given a nice wash within, so you can see each scale coming out beautifully. And then one thing that's very different with this one as opposed to the others, which is something that's often associated with Psittacosaurus, are the quills up here on the back of the tail, and I think they as well look extremely, extremely nice. They are flexible, so you can kind of bend them a little bit, but honestly they look great, and I love the addition of the quills up here on the back of the tail. The tail is actually nice and long as well. You can see that it's really got some pretty significant length, but looking at the opposing side, you're not really going to see too much difference on this side as opposed to what we had just seen on the previous side, because of course being an articulated figure, it shows up in a neutral position, and you have to kind of position it and everything, pose it how you would like, but that just basically means that you're not going to have any kind of like dramatic difference to the sculpt on this side as opposed to what we had seen on the previous side. But you can see that it looks fantastic over here. Again, I love those skin wrinkles right there in the neck. but it looks great over here on this side, just like it did on the previous side. Paintwork is all awesome. The sculpt work is all awesome. Again, so much realism added to the figures as far as the way it's been painted with kind of flashier colors, although this one's not all that flashy, but there is definitely a good bit of coloration included and does sport some flashy colors in certain areas, but again, it's all really beautifully painted and realistically brought out with some beautiful dry brushes and washes. So yet another fantastic figure from the Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian line. And then as far as the base that is included with the Psittacosaurus, you can see it's a really nice earthy area, beautifully painted as well as sculpted. You can see that there's like a nice light dry brushing that they've given to the kind of earthy areas, and also quite a few different variations of greens included within the vegetation that is here on the base. And I think they've done a tremendous job of really making it look quite realistic overall, giving it an extremely appealing look. And again, I love that they don't skimp out on paint, and they really do make them look, I think, as realistic as possible for what they are. Again, using many different tones of color and lots of really nice dry brushing effects on the paint application. Another extremely appealing base, and I'm psyched to see one of the Ceratopsians actually having a base here, because I personally am a huge fan of bases with my dinosaur figures, and this one is gorgeous. Of course, with the base you get this little peg. You just have to pop this into the hole there in the center of the base, and now you're going to be able to position your Psittacosaurus in a bipedal position, of course, as well as the quadrupedal position that we had it in initially. And there we go, we can now see it standing in a bipedal position, as well, of course, as the quadrupedal position we had seen it in earlier. Again, allowing so much as far as posability and possibilities to display your figure. The Creative Beast Studio and the Beast of the Mesozoic always trying to give you the best possible product, and the fact that David Silva hurried up and released these bases with the figure just to make sure that everyone was happy is incredible, and just says a lot about his work ethic. But as far as articulation on our Psittacosaurus goes, we have articulation in the mouth, which we actually didn't even look at previously. You can see inside the mouth there, painted with a nice really dark purple, and again a beautiful gloss coat included inside the mouth. You can see it pretty decently, but it's not all that visible because the mouth of the Psittacosaurus is very, very small, potentially the smallest mouth out of any of these ceratopsians so far. But you can see the mouth and the jaw articulates really well, and then you of course have two areas of articulation here in the neck, which allows for some nice articulation right there, and then of course the ability to turn the head left, right, up, down, pretty much any way you want, allowing just tons and tons of possibility as far as posing your figure. And then we move back to the shoulder, nice articulation there. You also have articulation in the elbow. Everything's kind of stiff at this point, and there's two areas, like I had stated earlier. You have an area of articulation in the wrist as well as the actual fingers, so some really nice possibilities as far as displaying your figure in that aspect. But you also have articulation in the midsection as well as the hip, the knee, which is also stiff at this point in time, and then two areas down here of the feet in the ankle area. Really, really nice articulation there, and then of course articulation in the tail, which is beautiful as always, and you can even swivel it if you really want to. So lots and lots and lots of articulation for the Psittacosaurus here from the Beast of the Mesozoic line. I'm going to bring the hands out so he can kind of stand in a more natural position. But as far as a size goes, for a length, if we go to the tip of the tail and that tail's really out there, you are looking at about 12 inches, pretty much on the dot, or about 30.5 centimeters. You may not have been able to see that too well from your vantage point, but for a height, the highest point would be the Quills. You are looking at about almost 5.5 inches, just a little shy, or about 13.5, closing in on 14 centimeters, which would be the highest point there is the tail. But again, this all depends on how you position your Psittacosaurus. If you want the tail up in the air, you want the head up in the air, it can differ quite a bit. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon next to our Psittacosaurus from the Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series. And you can definitely see next to these figures right here that it sports some pretty darn good size and is quite easily the largest Psittacosaurus in my collection currently. But again, hopefully this will help to give you a good idea of the size overall. Being 1/6 scale, it definitely is a decently sized figure. And for one more size comparison, here is every single one of the Wave 1 series of Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian series figures included together as far as a size goes, although there might just be a little bit too many ceratopsians in here to really give you a good idea of the size of each, but hopefully you'll be able to figure it out. Maybe pause the video and you'll be able to get a better idea of what each figure is in comparison to each other size-wise. And again, there is just a plethora of ceratopsians included in the first wave of these Beasts of the Mesozoic series figures. This is definitely the largest wave, as well as each of the following waves have a little bit less than this. I believe 11 figures here in the initial release as far as this wave of ceratopsians from the Beasts of the Mesozoic, so there's quite a bit included here species-wise, but each and every one of these figures have been incredible, and quite easily, I would say, the best of each species in my collection. Again, extremely impressive in every way are these figures. So this Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian Series Psittacosaurus, the 1/6 scale Psittacosaurus, is incredible. As always, a completely gorgeous sculpt, really shining through tons and tons and tons of detail included on the figure. The scale detail is phenomenal all over the figure. It is really beautifully shown, again, like always, with a mixture of nice dry brushing and really nice washes included on the figure so that it makes sure that on top of the detail popping and looking really nice, the figure as a whole looks extremely realistic as far as the actual paint application goes. Beautiful sculpt, really nice to see the quills up on the back of the tail as well. That's one thing that I really quite like on a Psittacosaurus, and I think David Silva has done an incredible job as far as those go as well. Beautiful paint application, including many different tones of color, just like every single one of these figures has had so far. Really nice natural coloration on the figure with a little bit of extra flashiness added in certain areas, which is almost the theme of these ceratopsians overall. And of course, the paint application is all applied in nice natural ways, really looking like body color as opposed to just paint on a figure. And then on top of all of that, you have articulation to the max, which allows tons and tons and tons of posability on your figure and really nice diorama possibilities as far as the figures go overall. And then of course the inclusion of a base so you can make this figure quadrupedal or bipedal is just like the top of the line icing on the cake as far as this figure goes. And again, a huge thank you to David Silva for just being incredible and creating this line for us as collectors to love and enjoy. And it's just pretty much the stuff that we dream about as collectors, having incredible figures of each of these ceratopsians with tons of articulation, beautiful realistic paint schemes. Honestly, I couldn't ask for anything more than this. So if you would like to pick this Psittacosaurus up, I will include a link in the description to where you could do that on the Creative Beast Studio website. So make sure you check the description, go buy this beautiful Psittacosaurus, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.